Hey everyone, Zach Mason here. Welcome back to my channel where we discuss biblical prophecy and current events and how they intersect. You may have seen news stories about this.
This was the scene Wednesday in North Carolina, an EF3 tornado ripping through several towns, packing 150-mile-an-hour winds and spanning up to 6 football fields. The damage widespread, including at this Pfizer factory in Rocky Mount, a huge location with the equivalent of more than 24 football fields of manufacturing space. The drug company saying all employees were safely evacuated and tweeting, "We are working urgently to determine the best way to get back online as quickly as possible." This plant produces nearly 25% of Pfizer's sterile injectables used in U.S. hospitals. That includes medicines that treat infections and drugs for anesthesia and surgeries. And experts warn we could see some long-term shortages as Pfizer shifts production to other locations or rebuilds. This putting even more pressure on already strained drug supplies at U.S. hospitals. Overall, there were 309 drug shortages in the U.S. at the end of June. That's up from 295 at the end of last year, and the highest total recorded since 2014. It's still not clear which drugs might be affected or how long a shortage could last. For now, hospitals are storing up supplies and holding their breath until we know more. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
And oh wow, this plant is the equivalent of 24 football fields. It's a manufacturing plant that's 24 football field in size. Yet the part of the plant that was destroyed by the tornado was the warehouse. It was a warehouse where they kept the products that they make there. And so what is it they make there? And this warehouse, so it's just the warehouse destroyed, and it was completely destroyed. They can't use the products in it anymore. What were they making there? Well, the news says that at that plant makes 25% of the injectable medicines that Pfizer produces. Injectable medicines, okay, interesting. And yet, which ones? We don't know. Pfizer won't tell us what medicines they were. Interesting, right? Now they list the types of injectable medicines that they make there. And the first one mentioned is anesthesia. The second one is medicines that fight infections. So do they mean antibiotics? Or do they mean the kind of medicines that could prevent, in theory, certain infections by viruses? Strange why they don't give us a list. You know, Pfizer is a big company. It's a huge company. They're multi-billion, hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue, right? Huge company. They have PR people on staff. Professional PR people. You think they've got just average everyday PR people, or they have amazing PR people, the top of their line? I mean, you would think so, with all the criticism being leveled at them. Don't they have, isn't PR a big deal for them? I would have to imagine. So when something like this happens and it hits a factory that accounts for a huge percent of their injectable medicines, you would think a professional PR person is going to ask for information before they give a press conference to the press that's going to be asking them specific questions like, what medicines were in there? You know, what are shortages are we going to see? A professional, top of the line PR person is going to know that's a coming question. Yet they still haven't said. More than a week later, no information on the topic. Just news about how hospitals are stocking up on all medicines from Pfizer because they don't know what will be impacted, what kind of shortages will be impacted. Very odd. Very odd indeed. And makes me think I know exactly what kind of injectable medicines were in that warehouse, if you know what I mean. So this reminds me of an event that happened in Minneapolis a number of years ago. back in around, I think it was 2009. I'm going to read a little bit from an article by John Piper, who was there that day. If you don't know John Piper, he's an author, he's a pastor, he's a very strong Christian leader and teacher. But he was present this day when this happened because the Evangelical Lutheran Church was meeting in Minneapolis for an annual convention. It was a convention, not a conference. And the main topic that year was whether or not the Evangelical Lutheran Church was going to allow homosexual pastors, whether they were going to allow practicing homosexuals to be pastors in the Lutheran Church. And they had scheduled a vote on that very topic to take place at 2 p.m. They were using two buildings. They were using the Lutheran Church right there in downtown Minneapolis, and then they were also using a convention center down the street. Okay, so this is what John Piper writes. He says, "I saw the fast-moving, misshapen, and unusually wide funnel cloud of a tornado over downtown Minneapolis from seven corners. I said to Kevin Dow, that looks serious. It was. Serious in more ways than one. A friend who drove down to see the damage wrote, on a day when no severe weather was predicted or expected, a tornado forms, baffling the weather experts. So clear skies, and suddenly there's a tornado. Most saying they've never seen anything like it. It happens right in the city. The city, Minneapolis. The tornado happens on a Wednesday during the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America's National Convention in the Minneapolis Convention Center. The convention is using Central Lutheran across the street as its church. The church has set up tents around its building for the purpose. According to the ELCA's printed convention schedule at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, August 19th, the fifth session of the convention was to begin. The main item of the session, consideration, proposed social statement on human sexuality. The issue is whether practicing homosexuality is a behavior that should disqualify a person from the pastoral ministry. The eyewitness of the damage continues. This curious tornado touches down just south of downtown, follows 35 West straight towards the city center. It crosses I-94. It is now downtown. The time, 2 p.m., right at the time of the vote. The first buildings on the downtown side of I-94 are the Minneapolis Convention Center and Central Lutheran. The tornado severely damages the convention center roof, shreds the tents, and breaks the steeple, the cross, off Central Lutheran. Splits what's left of the steeple in two, and then lifts. Right? So, they're about to vote, 2 p.m., on whether or not to allow homosexual pastors. A freak tornado forms out of blue skies, destroys the convention center roof where they're meeting, breaks the cross off the steeple, and splits the steeple in two like it had been struck by lightning, and then disappeared again. What do you want me to say? Do I have to say anything? God is speaking. He judges. This was a gentle warning, honestly, but to me, it's fearful. I would be fearful if I were them. He broke the cross off the steeple. It's like a statement saying, you're no longer mine. That is scary. They didn't take the warning. It did disrupt the vote. They couldn't vote, but they reconvened later that day and voted. And they voted to accept homosexuals as pastors. This isn't the only time God has been speaking like this. You know, I don't know if you've seen videos like this.
Maybe minorities, sexual and gender minorities, have something to teach the church about dying to self, about new life, about... That is not a sign of God's judgment, okay?
Or like this.
And down it goes. Video captures the moment a 280-year-old steeple comes crashing down while crews battle large flames. According to Boston 25, this happened at a church in Spencer, Massachusetts around 3 p.m. on Friday. Investigators say they think a lightning strike may have hit the church. Thankfully, no one was hurt.
So, and yes, that last church that you saw burning was a pride-supporting church. God is speaking. And, it's not just on the LGBT agenda. The Pfizer tornado was was a strong statement as well. He singled out the warehouse, destroyed. I have a strong, I think we know what he destroyed. And they may come out later and say, no. Those jabs weren't in that warehouse. It was other things, but I wouldn't believe them. I'm not going to believe them at this point. I don't believe the news. I don't believe Pfizer's PR people. I believe what I see, and when I see a tornado striking a Pfizer warehouse containing injectable medicines out of nowhere, and they won't admit what it was, I think I know what it was. So, that said, here's what we need to understand. God has a will. He has a heart. He has emotions and a mind and a will. And this is an important point to bring up with people. The average perspective voiced by either lukewarm people or non-believers, like, well, God just wouldn't judge like that. God isn't mean. He doesn't want to control people. Et cetera, et cetera. And really, it's time we sat people down and really just explained to them, God has a will. He has a will. And you would do much better to surrender and begin asking yourself, what is God's heart? What is his mind? What does he want? What does God want? He wants things. And then to align yourself with it. In fact, I was ministering or witnessing to a woman we've been discipling or trying to disciple through Path to Hope the other day, and she's a witch. She does witchcraft, and she was asked, why would God be mad about that? Why would witchcraft be wrong anyways? And we talked about, I explained, no, it's clear sin. Whether or not you have good intentions or not doesn't matter. Okay, because even if you have good intentions of what you're trying to do, if you're doing it with a method that by itself is disobedience, you're empowering the enemy and you're displeasing God and outside his will. And he won't bless it. Doesn't matter what your intentions are. We all know the phrase, the path to hell is paved with good intentions, right? So, and she clarified and she said, well, I don't view it the way, I just don't view it like, the way I kind of see it is I'm trying to make my will his will, not so much making his will my will. She actually said that. And I said, that's it. I said, that's exactly what witchcraft is. You nailed it. That's what it is. And I told her to repent, and I said, you have to reject that thinking. Our wills don't matter unless they're in alignment. In fact, they're wrong if they're not in alignment with his will. We don't try to get God to bless our will, what we want. We need to surrender our wills to his. We need to seek and study and learn who he is. What is his heart? What is his mind? What does he want? And align ourselves with that. And then we're on the narrow road. And you can know you're pleasing him because you're doing what he wills, not what you will. All right. Anyways, very, very interesting event. Wanted to bring your attention to it if you had not seen it. So anyways, you guys have a great day, and we will see you soon.